designer of the English language and is a member of the Sahitya Academy, Delhi's General Council. So I would welcome ma'am and ma'am to give the welcome address for this program.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you, Madhumita. And I am indeed deeply honored and humbled that we have Professor Afsar Mahmud with us, who is a celebrated poet and scholar and translator. And he wears so many hats that I do not want to take up the time in reading out his bio. I'm sure somebody else will do that. But it's very interesting also to notice that he has started off in Wisconsin, and I'm sure he was part of the Madison South Asian Conference at some period of time or the other. All of us tend to visit that. And it's a fascinating reunion when you meet so many South Asians in that conference. And I'm also deeply impressed by the work Afsar has done in terms of translation, in terms of his wide experience in Telugu literature. The only way we can match you is the fact that the secretary of IPPL also belongs to Andhra Pradesh. Yes, yeah, Nishi Pulugurta, and she is also a translator from Telugu, but then she also sings Tagore songs in Bengali. So I don't know, Afsar, whether you would like to start on that as well. Yes. So I am absolutely delighted that you are here with us today for this. So yeah, you know, these things really contribute to that feeling of the fact that this is a poetry platform and anything might happen. Yes, we do not believe in algorithms. We defy all algorithms. And so poetry is where we are meeting. This is our platform. And therefore, you can hear anything, anytime. So don't get perturbed, Afsar. And welcome once again to IPPL. And I hope if you ever visit India, you will also make it a point to visit Kolkata and you will not be disappointed.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sanjukta, for a generous introduction, and so happy to see you.
So happy to see you too.
Then thank you so much for reminding Madison Days. Particularly the South Asia Conference is always such a beautiful reunion. Every time we meet in October in Madison, of course, it is always extremely cold weather. Yet it's like a lot of warm and then great friends and then conversations and sessions. Thank you so much, Intercultural Poetry and Performance team, particularly Navanita, Gopal Lahiri, Nishi, our own Nishi from Andhra, who later migrated to Calcutta. And then we have Madhumita. Thank you so much for this opportunity. So I actually want to begin with, because the title of the talk, Indian Poetry, Past, Present, and Future, which is, as you all know, such a broad topic. There is no way that I can actually start somewhere and end somewhere, right? So it's always like a middle path, Madhya Marga. So, but I want to begin with.
Yeah. So yes, sir. Of course, we will begin soon with the conversation. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Let me have the honor and pleasure, of course, of introducing Professor Afsar Mahmud, who is a poet and scholar from South India. Professor Afsar has published 5 volumes of poetry, 2 volumes of literary theory, and 2 volumes of short fiction. in his home language of Telugu. Some of these works are now available in English translation too. In 2022, Professor Apsar published Telugu poems in English translation with the title An Evening with a Sufi, which was published by the Red River Press, New Delhi. This year, his collection of short fiction, Sahil Will Come and Other Stories, has been just published by the Orient Black Swan, India. Professor Afsar is a well-known academician and South Asianist known for his academic and creative writing journey for the last 3 decades. Professor Afsar has been a staunch believer in alternative histories of Islam and Muslim identity politics in South India. With evidence from Telugu and Deccani Urdu, he has been endeavoring to show how local specific dimension and identity narratives shape Muslim communities. He has also had similar interest in Sufi writings from various vernacular sources, starting from his teaching career at the University of Wisconsin and now at the University of Pennsylvania. He also has included such theoretical frameworks and materials into a wide variety of courses that he teaches. Professor Afsar's first ever publication in English had been the Festival of Peers, Popular Islam and Shared Devotion in South India, which was published by the Oxford University Press, USA in 2013. Then Professor Afsar had moved on to another project based on the historical event of 1948 police action in Hyderabad and published another book, Remaking History in 1948 Police Action and the Muslims of Hyderabad in 2023 with the Cambridge University Press. Both books have been well acknowledged and has been debated in contemporary studies and is being taught at various levels at various universities at the United States of America and South Asia. Professor Afsar is now working on his new book, 150 Sufi Poems from Telugu, to be published very soon. Afsar Muhammad has won several awards both as a writer and professor. He had won the Outstanding Professor of South Asian Studies at least for 3 times from various universities at the United States. He is now on board of trustees for the prestigious American Institute of Indian Studies, one of the major institutes that promotes Indian studies worldwide. He is now looking forward to working on a collection of his English poem that is to be published soon. So once again, welcome Professor Afsar Ahmed, and it is our pleasure that we have in conversation with you Professor Nobonita Sengupta. She is an assistant professor at Shoshona College, a well-known academician herself. She is also a poet and a critic and a well-known translator herself. And on the other, hand we have Gopal Lahiri. Gopal Lahiri is a Kolkata-based bilingual poet, editor, critic, and translator, and has published in English and Bengali language, and has authored more than 29 books. That is to his credit. That includes 3 solo edited collections of English poetry on Jallianwala Bagh, translation of Tagore songs, Voices Within, and jointly edited collections of English poetry on Indo-American anthology, Stelling Heights Home Anthology, and Poetry Conclave Anthology. His translation work in Bengali of short stories of Israel has also been published by the National Book Trust of India. So welcome once again to this edition. And of course, from here on, it is over to you, Nobonita and Gopal Lahiri.
Thank you, Madhumita, for nice words. Thank you so much.
Gopal, you are muted.
Well, let me start. I'll ask Afsar about his journey as a creative writer and primarily as a poet. You mentioned somewhere I've read that you had the influence of your father when you were in your childhood. You loved poetry. Your father made me read great literature, and from him you got inspired to write, which took you to a different direction. Once a village boy, now you have crossed so many hurdles, and now you are in US, you are in the University of Pennsylvania, and in Southeast Asian Studies Department. You are an academic now, teaching students, and you should talk about that long journey, which we would like to listen to you. And before that, I just have a few lines reading from your poem, Mother's Hand. As you leave the village, I hope the waters of the nearby stream rise to see you off like your mother's hand. So let me listen to you, but you can start with a poem of yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's actually a very emotional beginning. That poem itself, Gopal Bhai, that is actually a poem I wrote for a lake in my village, childhood village. But before that, I just want to thank you everyone for making time to uh, participate here. As Gopal Bhai just told today, in a poem, it's a sunny day, you can smile a lot more. So we
Right.
all deserve those smiles, particularly in these terrible times of violence and war and everything. So to begin with, it's a long story. I don't know how to cut it short, but I try my best to make it short. So my father, whose name was Shamsuddin, but he made his other name is Kaumudi. Shams is sun in Farsi, and then Kaumudi is moon or moonlight. So he basically reversed the name. He translated extensively from Urdu and Hindi to Telugu. He translated Premchand, Kishan Chandra, Rahul Sankrichayan. He also translated some short fiction like Krishna Sopti. So I actually grew up reading, I would say, rather than Telugu, my journey as a reader started with Hindi literature and then somewhat a little bit of Urdu. And then, as any Telugu person, she would certainly watch this statement. As any Telugu person, we are so fascinated by Bangla literature. So we all know, of course, Bankim, but more than Bankim and Tagore, more than these two figures, Sarath is a very household name in Telugu families, not just confined to literary families, but also like very ordinary non-literary families too. They read Sarath, and then many of his novels, they were made into movies. Sarath Babu, Sarath Chandra Chatterjee. So it's a big influence actually in that way. So my father, because of his passion for Hindi, he taught Hindi for so many years. And then he was also, he was a student of Ram Vilas Sharma and Namwar Singh in Allahabad from Hindi Mahavidyalaya. And then he was a big part of Progressive Writers Association. So he was the regional president of Progressive Writers Association. So there was always this leftist environment within the family and outside the family. So I believe even now, those beginnings, they made a big mark on my personality and philosophy. Not only as a creative writer, but also as an academician, as a teacher.
Right.
then,
Yeah.
and
Continue.
then
Go on.
coming to USA is such an, like, it's not like, not a strategical move. It just happened. It just happened. I came here just for 1 semester and then stuck here. Because when I started teaching, the universities here, I started teaching at Wisconsin, and then University of Texas hired me. And then in 2016, University of Pennsylvania hired me here in South Asian Studies. I will talk about that journey later. I hope that beginning is good enough for now.
Right now, I just taking a cue of you telling that you went to US and stuck there and you are there now.
Yes.
But in your writing, you talk about loneliness while living in a different country. It is a painful separation, which you mentioned at point of time. You are physically away, but psychologically you are in as if in Hyderabad. You have a poem of Hyderabad, which I'd like to listen to from you. And most of your poem describe the pain of being away from home. So this is a point which I would like to highlight, and also to know from you why you write Hyderabad is my altered self, a dreamless sleep, a sleepless dream, and a waking sleep under a nap. There's a poem, A Rain Lost in Hyderabad, the translation I'm reading from your book. So here you can see what are the words here, the tightness of language and the deep pulsing of spirit, as if it's a poetry's way of charging the depths, hitting the fathomless. And then you continue to say that wherever I look, there a deep breath. Someone kept for me here the chest of endless words. So your passion for poetry is well known, along with your commitment to social discourses. Your book on the Festival of Prayers, Popular Islam and Shared Devotion in South India, focusing on public ritual in the context of Islam, which the remaking of history about the police action and the Muslim of Hyderabad. So in the course of time, what has surprised you or upset you in life?
Oh, that's a deep question, Gopal bhai. I don't think I can. There is a way that I can respond to that question. There are many movements,
Right.
of course. I actually, I'm a person who believes in positive force in life. Whenever there is something that disappoints me, frustrates me, upsets me, I immediately find a way to, like, okay,
Get
just
out.
count the blessing and enjoy the sunshine while it is still there. That is my philosophy.
No,
So,
but you can talk about Hyderabad. You say that you are away to US. So you read, if you have the poem of Hyderabad is there, you can read it.
yes.
And you can explain why this distance make you so, you are always feeling very, nostalgic of India. I think you came in 2019 in Hyderabad Salarjung Museum. You have some exhibition. Your 40 years of writing, they have celebrated there. So you are coming to India, but not very frequently, as if. So you talk about that, talk about your coming to India, about the distance, how it affects in your writings, how you feel about present day India.
Cool. So, Gopal bhai, the poem you mentioned, A Rain Last in Hyderabad. In that, the poem, the fourth stanza of the poem says, Hyderabad is my altered self. A dreamless sleep, a sleepless dream, awaking sleep under a nap. So that's actually represents my entire idea of Hyderabad. But but to be frank, it is not just about Hyderabad. As you mentioned in my previous poem, Mother's Hand, It's about my village, where I grew up, where I started my primary school. I was there until 6th grade. And then I barely know any English until I moved to a town, nearby town. And then I just know some Urdu because I was basically Urdu medium student. And then it took me a lot of time to learn Telugu because even though we speak Telugu at home, Telugu is still like my home language. It took me a lot of effort. People used to make fun of me when I speak Telugu. But luckily, I ended up writing in Telugu, even though I started journey as a poet in English. And then actually Pritish Nandi was the one who published my first ever poem when I was in junior intermediate. So he published my 2 poems in Illustrated Weekly of India. And then Mirror editor.
Afzal Garu, sorry to interrupt a bit. Could you speak a bit louder or closer
okay.
to the microphone? Maybe the volume is a bit low.
Oh, okay. Sure. Sorry about it. Oh, yes. It's low volume here. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Navneeta.
Now it's okay.
No, good. Thank you. So, and then Pritish Nandi, when published the poem, the immediate inspiration for an intermediate student at that point was he sent me 75 rupees as a remuneration. And then immediately Prabha Govind, the then editor of The Mirror, she actually read that poem and then asked me to write now and then. And then she started publishing continuously in English. And then every 3 months, she used to send 100 rupees for each poem. So that's a big inspiration to write poetry. So that all started with money, little money. But the inspiration, the true inspiration comes from my village when I was really super innocent, doesn't know the ways of the world, never learned anything that what you can see like the material life. And then when I visited Hyderabad in high school, just for, in high schools, they do this school excursion kind of activity. So I got that opportunity when I was in high school. And then Hyderabad was such a, it's not easy to describe that kind of mood for a village person. How does a cosmopolitan city looks like? And then what kind of encounter that would be? And then eventually I had to settle in Hyderabad for a few years. And then that lifestyle actually made me realize so many dimensions of modern life. So I was exposed to trains, city buses, universities, English language as a spoken language. And then so many things happened. And then I encountered what we can call urbanized middle class for the first time during my Hyderabad days. So Hyderabad always remains, yeah, that's a self that I wanted to arrive at, but always failed to arrive. So
yeah.
that
So that's
arrival
very
never happened. Even if I migrated to US, I still believe I still live in that village. That is still there. And then
mentally you are
just
still there.
One dimension of that passion. Yeah.
But then one question comes here that why you are writing poetry in Telugu first and then you translate. So why? Because you have already mentioned that you have written English poems also. So why you, and even you are now staying in US where English is everywhere spoken. So why you are writing only in Telugu and then sometime you translate? Any particular reason?
No, that actually I started writing in English, not in Telugu. So Telugu was still not my language when I started writing in poetry during my high school days. So that was actually my friends used to make fun of me because I don't even know how to speak English. When I moved to city, like not a city, it is a medium-sized urban town. My parents made me do English medium school. That schooling was terrible, and I was forced to learn English. I go to school and then come home and then cry every day because I can't utter even a single English word. Everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, they are just like Americans." So I took it as a challenge because I basically love poetry. I started memorizing Wordsworth, Shelley, Keats, and Byron. Just I pick up the selected poetry and then memorize. So by my 8th grade, I could memorize 10 poems by Shelley, 10 by Keats, 10 by Byron. So if you ask me to recite one Shelley poem, I would immediately recite it. And that made me, of course, that's a different language, poetry, literary language, not everyday language still, but it kind of helped me to get used to how English sounds. And that is where actually my first ever writing appeared in English rather than in Telugu. Because it's a kind of a revenge of a village boy.
Yeah.
Then
Yes.
I ended up writing, okay, I'm going to write one poem every day in English, not in Telugu or Hindi. And then I started writing sonnets, because they are easy to learn, 14 lines. And then I started writing ghazals, 2-liners. Then I migrated to Rubai, the 4-liners. So that actually, I kind of started experimenting with like, okay, these are like different ways of writing poetry in English.
So basically, you've been switching between languages from
Right.
from Telugu to English, then again back to Telugu.
Right.
Poetry, do you think it's been a kind of language of searching yourself, soul, or a language of also homecoming, maybe because you are there abroad and it kind of brings you back home while you're writing in Telugu? So the entire thing of writing in one's own mother tongue, after you have, within quotes, mastered the other tongue, so to say. So
yeah, so what happened as a person, because this is like a lot of shifts in this journey, so many destinations, so many paths that I couldn't arrive at, and then one such path is language skills. I'm very bad at learning languages. I teach languages. Like I'm kind of known as an excellent teacher of languages, but I still not good at learning languages. Particularly, I struggled so much to learn English, and it's always like back and forth between Indian languages and English. And then when I started writing, like in Wisconsin, thank you, Sanyukta, for reminding me about Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, they used to do like poetry readings. So one poet, American poet, Steve Tim, is also on Facebook, published poet. He invited me to read a poem. I read the poem in English, Telugu first, and then in English. So that's a big shift for me. Like, okay, this is something that I need to explore. And then because I keep getting invitations to do the poetry readings. And then I slowly moved back to my early days of English poetry. And I started writing again in English. Of course, I was still writing in Telugu. But the journey itself between Telugu, English, and again Telugu, now my new poetry collection will be out hopefully this year or next year in English. But I actually tried to learn so much in the process because I'm very good at not good at learning a language, but I know how to channelize my passion into some writing. Not my speech still like not like I don't actually I don't say like it is perfect, but I would say my writing, actually when I start writing, I put a lot of effort into writing. I take a lot of time to write 10 sentences, and then I read them, reread them, and then read it aloud. And then that writing process, it is the same in Telugu and English for me. That made me realize the power of language, power of words.
Yeah, I've been looking at both the collections actually, and I've always felt, and Gopalda would probably also agree with me here, that translations have played a very important role in your poetics. Like you translate your own poems, you've translated, just this morning we were having this conversation where you're also translating some Sufi poems, right, into English. So yeah, so this, like what would you, how would you look at yourself as a poet translator, or what is it that you are, I mean, what's your craft when you are translating your own poetry vis-a-vis when you're translating someone else's poetry?
Actually, Navnita, that's a very good question. But to be honest, my translation journey, the journey of translation, it is not like a professional journey.
Yeah.
When I started teaching Indian literature, South Asian literature, Indian poetry, particularly, that was one of the popular courses I taught at University of Wisconsin, Texas, and even here at the University of Pennsylvania. Then I realized that we are actually not representing India or South Asia in its real sense. We are representing just 2 or 3 languages when you teach either Indian literature or South Asian literature. You get lot of translations from Hindi, Urdu, some other language. So we totally ignore or reject the presence of other languages, South Indian languages or something else. So I made it a point, whenever I teach a course on Indian literature or South Asian literature or poetry, I made it a point to introduce at least a few pieces from these marginalized languages and literary cultures. So that is where actually I felt my translations are meant for classroom initially. And then even the poetry book, even this book that started with a graduate student at University of Texas at Austin. She is now a published poet in America. And then she wanted to learn Telugu. And then since she has a passion for poetry, she thought, okay, poetry would be a good medium to learn Telugu. And then after learning Telugu for 2 years, in third year, she did for 4 years of Telugu with me. In third year, she started reading very, very like minor poems in Telugu, in original. And then she felt in her 4th year, okay, I want to do some translation. So this book actually came out of her passion, not my passion. Shyamala Gallagher.
Shyamala.
Yes. She actually started, okay, You read the poem in Telugu, I'll read it again, and then you start working on it. So we started working on the translations. So that is like very like it's not like a planned kind of program. But later I think I made it okay since that became a part of my teaching philosophy. Like okay, to focus on marginalized languages and literature, literary cultures. And then I took it as a challenge and then started working on translations. So that is where I ended up, like the current project on Sufi poetry in Telugu. So thank you so much for asking that question. So idea is to translate 150 poems from Telugu, Sufi poems,
Wow.
not like mainstream
But
regular poems.
But coming to your Sufi poems, you say that for me, Sufism is nothing but a tool of resistance. And then I want to separate it from the supposedly spiritual meanings, which
Right.
you have proclaimed. But normally, what we understand Sufi poetry, like Kashmir Sufi poetry, that some sort of a spiritualism will be there. But like Gulzar said, that there is a passion of Sufi and the pains of a common man in your poem. So how do you view that about your poetry and how you explain that Sufi poetry is nothing but a tool of resistance in your case?
Thank you for that. Actually, that's a question I always encounter wherever I go. Even my students, they ask me the same question. How come? Oh, you're using a mystical kind of image. You're using mystical metaphors, imagery, and then mysticism. And then you saying that, okay, this is a tool of resistance and protest. How this is going to work? So this is a regular question I face. But Gopal Bhai, and then of course we have Nishi here, who is familiar with Bhakti poetry in South India. So when Bhakti poetry in South India, particularly in Tamil, started, there were so many dimensions, layers. One is there is always mystical dimension, but more than that, Bhakti movement in South India was not a religious movement or literary movement. It was a social movement. It's a movement against casteism, differences, then divisive politics, right? So later, it's same extended to other South Indian languages. And then, of course, even if you read now Kabir, Ravidas, or other poets, I don't know how to categorize them. They're using mystical imagery, metaphors. They are addressing the audience that is like more into religion. But the way they are presenting those materials, particularly Kabir, they are meant for social upliftment, right?
Yeah.
Kabir. And then it's the same like connection, right? Which is a long history of Bhakti movement, both in South and North. And then I actually come from that legacy. So when I use same like in the case of Sufi poetry, not just in India but South Asia, but also beyond South Asia. If you read Rumi or Hafez, and then if you read any other poet like Sanai in Farsi, they were radical thinkers, but they were using love and compassion as their tools, right? So this is very important. In the times of war, we need to understand the basic values of everyday life, which are still love and compassion. And then you need to learn how to love your neighbor, how to learn how to love your neighborly languages and cultures. This is very important lesson that we need, ethical, what we can call ethical communication, that we can take from literature or Sufism, or like, if you like, your Indian mysticism. Of course, Indian mysticism is not a linear movement. There are so many variations, right? So I actually believe that, of course, Gopal Bhai, Navneet, there is always that element, mystical element, right? There is no way that, okay, you can't say that Rumi is not, not a mystical poet. He's always there. At the same time, for what purpose they are using mysticism? This is a question every poet need to ask him or herself on a daily basis, right? Why should I write a poem? I get up in the morning, I write a poem, and then it's a conversation, right? Poem is a conversation, right? So what kind of conversation I'm going to hold? So this conversation is about love, compassion, humanity, and then this is the art of kindness. That is what we are trying to like give to this world, right, Gopal?
So now at least there are a lot of requests are coming that you should read at least one poem.
Yes. At this note, I was just thinking I'll read the poem Evening with a Sufi, the title poem of that book. Until then, Afsar Garu can look up the poems that he would want to read. Also, maybe a couple of poems from the ones that you have translated recently. Maybe we could hear those as well. So I'll just read this poem and then Evening with a Sufi.
Yes.
I'll never know the fate of my worn-out cap. I took a handkerchief from my pocket and tied it on my head. It's not right for the human mane to sway. The doors tightened on the still closed grave, waiting for the evening prayer. When the call sounded, the sparrows flung up in joy and reached home. After the evening prayer, I knew the body of the Sufi by the embroidered cloth that covered him for many 100 years. I bent my body down to his feet, reciting verses. 2 eyes changed to 2 tears that shone on the embroidered cloth. The tears changed to 2 sparrows flung up into nowhere. I had gone somewhere inside him. I couldn't come out. His memory is like a worn Arabic text. I'm afraid to open, afraid I'll tear it. But once I made a pilgrimage there. How can this make sense? As I was leaving the shrine, something exploded into a cloud of sparrows, then a flurry of severed wings. Everyone was running here and there, screaming. I ran into the shrine again, into the shrine's pure silence. Now I watch a sparrow with its bleeding beak writing something on the grave, translating its pain. Where will I go now? There is a grave to dig within me. I found this poem extremely profound, and like I could understand after reading this volume why you named the volume as An Evening with Sufi. So, like, I mean, now you could read a few of your poems.
It's actually a poem, it's a tribute to Wali Dakkani.
Yes.
Who's, like, of course, most of you are familiar with what happened in Gujarat, and then they actually destroyed his grave, right? But he comes from Deccan, known for the earliest poets of Deccani Urdu. But it's not just about language, it's more about his Sufi philosophy, right? So my experience, of course, goes beyond Wali Deccani, and then I try to bring other aspects of shrine culture in India, right? But if you think about shrine culture, it's not about some religion, right? It's more than a religion, right? So I want to bring back those aspects of shrine culture and then address those concerns in the wake of changing world. So this poem actually indeed a kind of a journey between memory and history, universal and local. That is how it became the title of the book itself. Thank you.
There's also this request from Mohua Sen to read Mother's Hand if possible. Could you please?
Yeah. Actually, that is the poem Gopal Bhai was mentioning in the beginning of this the conversation. Let me open this. But I actually wanted to read something from my forthcoming collection, but I can do that later. But I'll read Mother's Hand first. I hope I'm going to find it soon. It was here before, but and then I'm very actually grateful to Divya for this collection. He put a lot of effort, and then otherwise it would not have happened. So let me get to this poem. Okay, 68 from the book. Okay. Mother's Hand. Amma Chayyi in Telugu. As you leave the village, I hope the waters of the nearby stream rise to see you off like your mother's hand. I hope in cold times there is a memory of sunlight sneaking in through night's dark doors. I hope you allow your eyes to hunt on both banks of life's river. I hope you send messages across the waves in all life's languages. I hope your mind is empty of empty lessons. I hope your steps walk on water. I hope you marvel at the crane who darts in and out of the waves. We lock up our minds as rooms. I hope you find freedom. Crossing the green fields, I hope you find the wonders of the faraway land. When you reach the village, I hope the stream rises to meet you like your mother's hand. I hope you understand the twisting language of the trees. I hope their murmurs open to show you yourself. Thank you for that.
Wonderful.
There are some questions from our Zoom viewers. Gopalda, should we take the questions now?
Yeah. Now, before that, I think Afsar, you want to read one of your poems from your upcoming collection?
Upcoming collection.
Yes. 1 moment, please. Yeah, thank you so much. So this is the poem from the forthcoming book, A Note of Discard.
This will be published in English?
Yes, this is English poetry.
Okay.
Not translations. Yeah. The story begins from a tiny violin, then drifts along the lanes of my city. The violin and I walk together and fine-tune every bit of life. In effect, many streets walk into me. A strange idiom of the future bursts open. Now it is my turn to figure out each syllable and sound. The idiom sits on my nerves and insists I follow the pitch-perfect note. Then at some point, the city decides that violin solo is too soft and swirly for a conversation. Since I am a little folksy too, I try Shehnai's twists and turns. How much do you know about Bismillah Khan's interior recesses that stream into Shehnai ceaselessly? Shattered by utter poverty, yet always finding a straight path of divinity. How far he must have traveled into yourself. Yes, the city declares nothing could beat its ferocious note of life. I mutter to myself and feel lost by the pell-mell ways of the intimate lanes. As I walk along the sea of people, then none of my forlorn utterances make any sense or sound. Lost forever, but never found anywhere, anyways, never, ever, never, ever. That is one of the poems from the forthcoming collection.
That's kind of amazing. Like the city, the self, the search, it continues across languages and across boundaries.
Right. So that is one of the things that I figured out, that when talking about Indian poetry, the present status and the future, urbanity, city is going to be a constant metaphor that you can't escape. The city's rudeness in the music of life, they're always battling with each other. I believe that's one of my themes in that collection.
Oh, but Navanita, you can take some questions.
Yeah, so here we have Amita Rai. She is asking that since you've translated your poems into English, like Tagore, do you feel that your translated poems give you as much satisfaction as the original ones? And I think you can take both these questions together. Amit Shaha also asks this, Amit Shankar Shaha. How do you deal with fidelity when translating your own and when someone else's poems?
Oh my gosh, that is a difficult question. So I don't know, because I said that I'm not like a professional translator. I translated out of the need for my students in the earlier phases, and then I made it one of my goals. Okay, let us start working on some translations, and then translation. Actually, I never dared to translate my own poems into English, because that pressure is enormous, and then it's not easy to encounter that pressure. Because when you start translating a poem, you feel like writing a new poem itself, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of feel,
It's always there.
that is like a lot of pressure for a creative being and then translator between. So it's like not a way that you can find a balance between your creative personality and then translator. Translator should be more professional, at least, right? That professional spirit would not sustain when you are translating your own poetry. Even I never translate my own short fiction into English, even though people always ask me, why don't you do it yourself? It's not possible for me. I can't do that. Because, it is like reliving those moments. Writing poem itself, of course, it's an enjoyable moment, but I would not say 100% enjoyable moment. There's a lot of suffering, pain when you are writing a poem. So that is actually, you got to relive those painful moments when you start translating, right? That's such a difficult travel. So the same with prose and poetry. So the same rule functions there. So that is the reason why I actually switched to translations of other poets, other short fiction writers. It is easier for me to translate others' works. And then because I don't have to relive those moments and then go back to those painful suffering of a creative being. So in translation, I would be just professional. And then, yeah, I want to remain professional till the end. That's a very safe, say what we can call safe zone. uh, that's the reason you don't find many translations of my own writings in English. This is the only instance, but this was also, as I explained before, my student did that. And then that actually made me little flexible and then easy to handle.
So with fasting hymns, it's you being translated into Telugu. You wrote in English first, and then that's being translated by P. Srinivasa Goud. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly.
Right.
So yeah, this is also a very interesting collection. We didn't actually speak of it at all, but this small book of poems where you are very, very short ones. And
right.
Like I was actually a bit intrigued by you that it's a bilingual book, right? So
right.
What kind of brought you to do this? I mean, bringing out, generally publishers are not very willing to bring out bilingual collections.
Right. So actually they were English poems, right? They were not in Telugu originally. But one of my friends, Srinivas Goud, he did the translation. But there are also other translations available of the same poems in Telugu. So there was also the same question, why you should have done your own. No, I can't do that. It's not easy for me because these poems I wrote during those 30 days of fasting in Ramadan, right? So each day, one poem. So 30 poems are there. 30 fasting days. So, but these are like short poems, like what I earlier explained when Gopal Bhai was asking about. This is kind of a Rubai structure. Sometimes I go beyond that, but it's basically I intended to do it like four-liners, like Rubai, but in English, when I started writing, I lost the control and then gone beyond 4 lines. So this is one of the collections that I always I actually don't even dare to read them again. So don't ask me to read them now. I actually encourage you to read on your own because particularly at this moment, it's not easy for me to read because it's not a poetic movement. It is like the movements are like very, very, very like painful. And I don't know because but the book got so great response and it is being translated into some of Islamic languages as well. Then got good reviews as well. But I'm very sad when I start looking back. I don't even open that book when it is on my shelf. So I'm scared of looking back into each line because that gives me that reminds me of course, it's not a reminder. It's happening every day these days. So it's like every day happening right now. So we can't say it's a reminder. So, but I still, because I'm a person quite far from that situation. So for me, it's an imagination, but it's still like a lot of pain, right? So those are like issues with the translation as well, right? I never tried translating these into Telugu. They came in English, and then I published them as it is. Thank you, Navnita, for bringing that collection of poems. Yeah.
Also, like we use languages which of familiarity, of this non-familiarity, distancing ourselves and going into it. And I'm sorry if it has evoked into any negative feelings and memories.
Right.
But poetry is all about our feelings. So we have Nishi Pulugurtha has made a comment here of how the poem, your poem, the accented word also brings in the issue of language. She's commented when you were reading the poem Mother's Hand, that's the time when she made this comment. And we have a question from Dr. Kushumita Mukherjee Devnath. She says that, do you think that we best write in the language in which we think?
Could you repeat that question, Navnita?
Yeah, she asks that, do you think that we best write in the language in which we think?
Yeah, it's not easy because, well, I'm actually I love whatever is coming right now from India, like a lot of great poets writing in English, including you are all writing in English these days, which is not your mother tongue, right? But this was the issue I had with the debate I had with Salman Rushdie when his book came out, in the Mirror Work came out. I was in Madison, Wisconsin, and then he gave a first ever book talk on that collection, Mirror Work. And then we had an opportunity to go out and have dinner that evening. And then I keep asking him, why do you miss so many like regional writers? And then I also asked him, the immediate question was, you also miss a lot of writers writing in English as well. It's a long, so Mirror Work came around 2002 or something, I believe. I actually don't remember it exactly, but it's almost 25 years. And then last 15 years, particularly, are like spectacular moments in like English writing in India. We have wonderful short fiction writers coming from different languages, but writing in English. Right? And then poets, particularly poetry, if you look like even like the recent collections, anthologies of English poetry from India, there is such a shift. It's a paradigmatic shift in the way they are articulating their Indianness, the way they are dealing with their mother language, mother tongues, and then this English. So now we move to a phase where you can say, okay, there is nothing like mother tongue. Particularly after globalization, there is no such idea such as mother tongue, matrabhasha. You are forced to use English. But these poets writing in English, they are forced to write in English not because of the global value of that language, but they felt there's some internal necessity there. Right? So this phase is something different. What we had earlier, like Kamala Das, Nissim Ezekiel, all these poets in the like era, including Ramanujan. So these poets are short fiction writers. Their immediate language is not their regional language. but English, right? So how English becomes a mother tongue in its contemporary usage? That's a question we need to ask. English is not like a foreign language anymore. English not like it's easily like accessible, and then we have like you can here in this conversation. I see a lot of people, they all write in English, right? That writing in English from India is comparable to what is happening in world literature. So if you come to US and then recite your poetry, English poetry anywhere, either in universities or outside universities, you don't see much difference, right? They are just like any international poet. So this turn, I believe, is so crucial in the making of Indian English literature. I hope that's like, I don't know whether I responded to the question or not, but that is one of the things on my mind, and I just wanted to say that, and then I said it.
Yeah, true, very true. So we have one question from Facebook. We have your Mr. Sudeep Ghosh. I think you know Sudeep Ghosh has been a critique of and is also a professor. So he is writing. He asks, "Belief in your poetry is more political than religious. How far does this impact the landscape of Indian poetry in English translation? The idea
Good
of belief
question.
that you
Yeah.
contain in your
Right. Good question. Thank you so much for that question. There's the questions Gopal Bhai was also asking about Sufism earlier, right? Yes, everything is political. Not just poetry, but everything you say, you utter. And then everything you are trying to articulate in a language, it is political. There is nothing personal. A very personal is a political dimension. That is what I believe basically. And then there are, of course, at some point, you also feel like talking about your nostalgia, like in my poem Mother's Hand, there is some nostalgia in that poem, right? But that nostalgia is not pure nostalgia, right? So there is some political necessity that forces you to speak about that nostalgia, that mother's hand, right? I think they're like what we can call connected histories, personal and political. It's also same in the case of mysticism and then politics, social environment. So everything is connected now. So there is no way that you can separate and put them in a different box and then, okay, name it, label it, and then keep it alone, right? So there is a conversation going on among all these things. So we need to like participate in this conversation. So you obviously become a political being at the end of the day, right? So
And that's why you say once that poetry can change the mind of the people. And you can say it can bring internal revolution, which can make a huge impact in society. So that can only happen if that is political in that broad sense.
Yeah.
So within the same review, we have Amit's question here as well. He says that coming from a leftist family to infiltrate a rightist America itself seems like a protest, though incidentally done. How does this affect the situatedness of your writing? Looking at how.
So I'm still there with wandering between those kinds of leftist lanes. But I would say it's not as strong as the previous times. So this is same in the case of, like, if you look at the past of Indian poetry, the past is not same as the present. So many things changed. Like if you compare with 70s, and then when you arrive at the 80s, and then 90s, and then the present tense. So you then realize that it's not enough being a leftist. There are issues that leftists can't even see or analyze. They fail to see the dimensions of caste. They can't study, they can't understand how religion works. So there are some failures there. We need to be aware of those failures and then certainly agree that they are failures. So this was also a conversation I used to have when my father was a staunch leftist. He was active. He was a green card holder. But I have a different green card now. That's a different story. This is a journey we need to make. When you look at the generations changing, the transformations happening, like it's not the same generation in post-globalization India, right? So we have a generation here that is dealing with economic liberalization, then market economy, and then lack of sufficient sources, basic needs. Even though we have like wonderful sky wonderful great mansion like houses, we also live in like huts, right? This is what Ramanujan says. We are all living in the same movement where you see a cart on the sky, on the road, and also the like planes in the sky. How do you understand this? Right? There's a paradoxical situation there. So leftists fail to understand that paradox. No doubt about it. So I actually open that. I'm open to that criticism when it comes to Marxian philosophy.
Absarvai, I have some observation on your poems because I find some of the signifiers, some questions from your poems. Who we are, where we belong, what divides us, and what unites us in the society. I mean,
Right.
if you can
Yes.
amalgamate this thing, you can find that your poems are always in search of that.
Also, I guess one more, if we can add, what is it that we believe in? Belief comes in again and again, faith and belief.
Yeah. So because eventually that is what Sufis believe in union, fana, right? But in Sufi's world, that union happens in a different context. In my world, that happens between you and me, right? You and me define, this is going back to Eliot's famous lines, T.S. Eliot's famous line. You and me define this world, shape this philosophy. So that is a kind of dialogue we need. There is no way that you can erase someone and then put someone else there. So as long as I am here, you also exist there. So this dialogue between I and you, I and we, it's a constant dialogue. And then sometimes we actually ignore that because of our narcissistic worldview, right? So I want to bridge those paths and then see how they are going to address the concerns of contemporary world. So this union is something that we need immediately. This is a union between local and global. This is a union between my language and your language. This is a union between the waters where you live and then the waters by which you travel and then arrive at, right? We all need this journey. It's a constant journey. There is no way that, oh yeah, I have reached or arrived at some manjal destination, nowhere to go, I settle here. There is no settlement here. There is no fixed identity. Right? That is the question Ramanujan, A.K. Ramanujan, raises in his wonderful, famous essay, Is There an Indian Way of Thinking? An Indian, not the India, right? So that multiplicity is the essence of life. And then that is what Walt Whitman talks about multitudes, right? In his famous poem. So that multitude and then multiplicity, diversity, diversification is the need of the hour. So that is where I think we are all trying to go and then find a way and then bridge. So we don't want to burn the bridges. We need them. We want to keep them alive as long as they don't export weapons and violence. Right?
We are almost approaching time, but then there's one thing that we must talk about, because that's how most of us connected with you. That is the Saranga magazine. So you've been doing a lot of work of bringing Indian poetry to the global readers through Saranga. So if you would like to tell us briefly about the journey, how it began and how it kind of came to you.
Actually, I didn't do much. I just started working on it. So I'm just like a student of Indian poetry, Indian literature. I'm just trying to learn what we can do and then what we can do and then what we can bring to this global table. Right. As I mentioned before, I actually started thinking about this, the need of presenting our works in a global context. That actually came to me while talking to, like in classroom environment, right? So later, actually, even Oxford, when they published anthology of Dalit poetry, those poems, they had like almost 10 or 12 poems translated by me in that collection, anthology. They were initially translated for the classroom. And then I like reworked on those drafts and then they took them, right? It's the same in the case of other like, but my focus is more about like more on Telugu to English because even though I know Hindi, Urdu, also I taught those languages here in US, but that's not my primary area. So I focus more on Telugu to English translations. And then I would love to do something in future, but I want to write something like about like Indian literature and like in a very broader like way, like just the way that you put this topic as a for the conversation, like how do we define past, present, and future of Indian literature? So this is one of my questions, and then I want to see how that question fits into my like scholarship, and then what I can do from there.
Right. So actually, several of us, as Nishipolo Gupta also mentions in the comment section, that several of us in IPPL are and have been associated in some way or the other with the Saranga magazine. And that it's a bilingual one with both Telugu and English. So all those who are watching this, from FB or in Zoom, you must go and visit the Saranga website. And if you can read Telugu, good for you. You can read both. And those who cannot read Telugu, but at least visit the English section where you will find reviews, poems, stories, and a lot more. Yeah. So if our audience has some more questions here, or Gopalda, would you like to say anything?
No, I think we are running out of time now, right now, but I am again requesting Apsar to read a poem which you feel that we can conclude with that poem which you like most.
So actually,
and in the present context, of course.
Oh, okay, that is, I actually don't know how this poem fits into the present context. I actually wanted to read one Sufi poem.
Yes.
Which I still call. It's not Sufi in its real sense.
Yeah, you have mentioned it. Time and again you are mentioning. So now we have understood.
Right. It's a tribute to Bismillah Khan. It's in the collection as well. A piece of bread, a country, and a Shehnai. That's the title of the poem. Most of you familiar how Bismillah, the last days of Bismillah Khan, he was living in utter poverty, right? He was just asking for one piece of bread. While USA was actually offering him to come to USA, and then they want to name one entire neighborhood after him, right? So you see the decisions, the choices people make. Yeah. In your final rest on a rope cart, were you still dreaming of a piece of bread? Beloved one, we the people of this country, of that country, can make anything but a piece of bread for you. Your death now is a dream forgotten. Stingy dream, secret, yesterday, the day before, or early dawn of some endless night. Snatched from a broken sleep like a cut thread. Amma says, don't forget the early dawn dreams, as they might become real, Amma says. One festival of breads, you drank the last drop of sweet kheer at my home. The sweet kheer slipped into your beard. So said the prophet. This is prophet saying, all my dreams are inevitable truths. And squeezed his body into a qibla and swallowed the poison in Fatima's womb. And then slipped away into his dream. That was like knowing then what was left. One Karbala, bodies piled on bodies. And from her birth pangs and from her broken sleep, Fatima began to groom the hurt field with her braid. When you poured your pain into your pipe of Shehnai, did I ever tell you all my history is a broken sleep, a shattered, genderless dream that multiplies? Your dream of bread is not far from her battlefield anymore. Your body at last on the rope cart, the last pinning glance of the war, they are the same dream, one restlessness, one violent shriek. This is what I am now. When you left, the Shehnai turned alone into her dark corner. When you left, the Shehnai turned alone into her dark corner. and sang to herself, beating and beating the ceaseless tune of the dream you left, our friend. Thank you.
Excellent. I think I am very much moved this particular poem.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Navonita, if you have anything to add,
I don't think we should.
because now after
add
this,
anything
it will
after
be
this.
very difficult to.
Let's just go to Madhumita Di, who's
Ah.
awaiting with a wave vote of thanks. I don't think there can be anything more that we can add after this.
Yeah, after this poem.
Absolutely. I agree with Navonita and Gopala. Of course, nothing could have ended this session more brilliantly than this particular poem. And of course, there were this session had been food for thought for poets, for translators, for academicians. To talk about there are certain poetries that come in certain languages. That's the a truth. And of course, talking about the Indianness, talking about the multiplicity of it. There's perhaps nothing more true than that. And talking about this Sufi identity, which he said is not the typical Sufi we understand. But then, of course, we do understand Professor Afsar has been talking about a synchronization, a kind of, I would say, a kind of a democratization in the way that we look at a lot of things. That is very essential, and especially in the times that we are living, in times where things are getting complex. Poems that come from the pens of poets like Afsar, tell us that there is a way of looking at life that we have to integrate ourselves. So thank you, sir, so much for giving us your precious time. And of course, every moment was a delight, and it was personally for me a kind of a learning experience. I would take this opportunity to thank our wonderful conversationist today, Navonita Sengupta and Gopal Lahiri, both of whom put pertinent questions and of course made this whole session very vibrant. I would like to thank the President, Professor Sanjukta Dasgupta of IPPL for being there with us, Nishi Pulagurtha, Secretary IPPL, for being with us, the honorable members of the EC of IPPL, and of course the members of IPPL for being there, and of course our Facebook viewers who had been there as a support for us. Thank you for being with us. That this journey has been wonderful is the least that we can say. So signing off for the day, and hoping that we will come back with such more sessions for all. So thank you once again, Professor Afsar Mahmood, for being there with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you so much for making time to participate in this conversation. Navonita, could you do me a favor? I actually missed some of the chat messages. Could you send it to me by email?
I think Navonita, you can do that.
Yeah.
Also. Yeah.
Some of the messages that are in the chat box, Zoom chat box, I have read out all the messages that's been there. And if you want, I can just I'll
copy and copy paste.
Copy paste it. But I guess will it go away as soon as I turn off the Zoom?
Yeah, you turn off.
Yes. Okay, I'll copy paste. I've stopped the live stream.
So you copy them now. Copy
I'm
it
just
now.
copying them. Yeah.
So feel free to email me anytime. If you're traveling this way, please let us meet and then have some food and conversations. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the time.
Good day to you and good night to everyone else.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Take care all. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just trying to
Thank you.
take the messages.
Think Basudha. No problem.
Oh.
Done.
Okay. Those who want to leave may leave. I won't switch off the Zoom now because the messages would get lost. What I'll do is I'll just copy them and then maybe I'll